You can use it for literally whatever you're passionate about. You know, if you're an artist, you can go into a lucid dream and see your next best-selling painting. If you're a writer, you can have a lucid dream and open up a book and see like, what's the next chapter I should write? What's an idea for my book cover? You know, you can use it for absolutely anything you want.
We are heroes and dreamers. We are restless believers, stronger than
I am so excited and deeply grateful to have such an inspiring, beautiful, and powerful guest on the show today. Lana, thank you so much for being here and welcome to Empowering Vibes.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited as well.
I'm so excited too because I decided I want to bring more, like a more broad kind of variety of topics into Empowering Vibes because we had so many guests already talked about beautiful topics such as mindset, manifestation. We even talked about plant medicine already, but I never ever had anybody yet talking about lucid dreaming, and you are a lucid dream coach. So for everybody who has never ever heard of that yet, what is lucid dreaming?
Oh, good question to start with. So in really simple terms, a lucid dream is any dream where when you're inside the dream, you know that you're dreaming. So it could be for, 5 seconds where you're talking to your deceased grandma or a deceased friend and you're like, wait a second, this is definitely a dream. Or maybe you're in your childhood home or something and you notice something is off. Or it can be for a really long extended period of time where you're super conscious that you're dreaming. And so you kind of change the dream narrative and use it for what you want. So there's lots of different levels of it, but a lot of people have had just that like spontaneous kind of 1 to 2 minute experience where they're like, oh, I'm definitely dreaming right now. And that is a lucid dream.
It's so fascinating. How did it come into your life?
It came into my life when I was a really young child. So I was about 4 or 5 years old and I was having some pretty bad night terrors. And so I was having that experience that a lot of people honestly have as adults as well, where before going to bed, I'd had a couple of night terrors that week. And so I was feeling anxious about going to sleep. And I was like, you know what, tonight when I go to sleep, if this scenario happens again, I'm gonna know that I'm dreaming. So I don't have to be scared. Right. And as a kid, I had been watching this channel back in the 90s. It was called CITV and it had this big yellow logo button. And I was like, okay, if it happens and I get scared, I'm going to like push this button and it's going to change everything to like cartoon, kind of like what was playing on that TV channel. And so that night I found myself in one of those kind of Disney villain-esque situations again. And I was like, no, it's happening. And I saw the big logo and I pushed that and everything changed immediately to cartoon. And I thought that was so funny. And so that's kind of how it stemmed for me. It was just a one-time thing of setting that intention before going to sleep as a kid and starting to play with like making things cartoon or changing characters around and kind of messing with the dream, doing stuff like that.
That's amazing. And how did it evolve so that you're today like teaching this?
Yeah. So, from that single experience, I knew I could use it for all different things in my life. I used it as a kid with things that I would be struggling in. So like simple stuff, learning to ride a bike, spelling tests at school, problems that I was having with like relationships in my teenage years. I started using it a lot to deal with depression and anxiety. And I moved to Japan when I was 19. I lived there for 5 years and I kind of had that like I don't know what people call it, like a quarter life crisis type thing, where it's just like, I don't, is this really what I want to do? I was working an office job that I didn't care very much about. And I thought at that time, I reflected on what is something that I've enjoyed throughout my whole life, what's something that's been really helpful for me. And the only thing I could really think of that had been super consistent was dream work. I just thought, dreams are so fascinating. They tell me so much about myself and other people, and they've helped me so much through different stages of my life. So that was when I decided I really wanted to go deeper into that. And I wanted to go back to school and maybe research it, or, see if it could be something that was not just helpful for me, but helpful for other people as well. So that was kind of the midpoint where I was like, okay, I'm going to really see if I can make this something that I can share with other people, they can help them. And so that's when I decided to pursue a master's degree, and I started conducting research on lucid dreaming for treating depression.
That's fascinating. So does science already fully know what dreaming is? Or is that still something where we cannot fully explain what exactly is happening while we're dreaming?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of theories about what dream work is, but there's nothing, super solid on like, this is definitely absolutely what it is. I think the kind of main two arguments are either that it's just like completely pointless in your brain, like creating sending random neural signals to different parts of the brain that are creating all this random imagery. But obviously I lean more on the side of that dreams can be very meaningful, and it's a way of our mind processing like things that have gone on in our past, in our childhood, and things that we're kind of contemplating and moving through in the present day, and then also things in our future, which can be stuff we're scared of or fearful of, or our biggest desires and aspirations, and kind of our mind trying to filter through what can be helpful for us and what can help us progress in our waking lives. But as with everything, right, like it's really whatever you make of it. So, people can have a very profound dream and wake up and be like, oh, just a dream, whatever. Or you can have a very profound dream and wake up and really use all that information to benefit you or benefit other people in some way.
Mm-hmm. So before we dive deeper into the topic of lucid dreaming, I would like to talk. So let's say somebody has a dream, just like a dream that is not directed by the person, about something where he or she knows like, okay, that was something significant, but it cannot like be pointed yet. Okay, what does it really mean or something? All they know is like, it does have significance. Yeah. How do we approach this?
There's lots of different methods. I think one of my favorite methods is called dream interviewing, and it was a method developed by Dr. Gail Delaney. And that's where you take a particular aspect of the dream. It might be a dream character or a particular environment or an emotion that seemed really prominent in that dream. And then you kind of almost interview the dream, like you're interviewing yourself. So if it was a character that kept showing up for you, you might look at like, what does that person mean to me? Like when I think of this person, what are some of the adjectives I would use to describe them, or what scenarios have they played a part in my life? Where did I meet them? What season of life was I in when that happened? And kind of starting to think about things like that so that you can, pair together if this is a person who really inspires you, or you find them to be really courageous, or you admire, their confidence, something like that. then that dream meaning might be attached to that kind of aspect of your life. Whereas if it's someone that has constantly shown up in situations of your life that are really stressful, or you've had bad experiences with them, then it might have more of a like negative meaning to it, that kind of thing.
That's so fascinating, because there's a coaching tool where we kind of, with certain shadow parts of us, or certain, if we have certain behaviors that we don't like, that we kind of get in touch with that part of us, and then we start to ask the questions as well, like, what's your purpose? Why are you here? What are you doing for? And so on. So basically, it's as well like these images or these parts that the subconsciousness shows us in a dream, that we go into conversation with it. That's
Totally.
beautiful.
Yeah, like I kind of think of it as different, not necessarily fragmented parts of the self, but just, different shadow aspects or different light aspects. I don't think there's anything that's completely random in a dream. You know, even the most mundane kind of symbol or person, I think, is there for a specific purpose. And yeah, I'm sure, as you've experienced as well, Hannah, like when you go into those kind of representation and the meanings and things like that, it is very surprising how much comes out. And something that seemed initially random, you're suddenly like, oh my God, this ties to all these things that I've been thinking about or processing. So yeah, it's really interesting.
But are those things like always, do they need to be interpreted by the individual? Because, you know, there are these things like where you can Google, like, I don't know, I dreamt of a black dog, and then you Google and it means that and that. Is that kind of like not very valid, because it needs to be what a black dog in that situation means for me or to me?
Right. Yeah, I think, you know, I'm never going to say to someone like, don't Google it, right? Because there are absolutely things that come up when you Google something that might feel relevant, or you might look at and be like, oh my God, yeah, that's exactly how I relate to that symbol or that kind of thing. But I would recommend trying to do it yourself first. Like if you see a black dog, you know, thinking about, what does that mean to me? Because if you're someone who was bitten by a dog as a child, a black dog probably has a pretty different feeling for you than someone who, you know, grew up with like 5 pet black dogs and that's your favorite animal. And so going on Google is not going to tell you that specific life experience, but it might be interesting to look at, like, oh, I don't know, general ideas of what the color black represents for the collective kind of thing. So I always prefer doing it myself first. So that way, you know, my mind doesn't just go into, this is what someone else thinks, but I can look up something on Google or in a dream dictionary and say like, oh, that really actually relates to what I wrote initially for myself, you know?
So when we Google, we kind of like also like give less attention to what it says and more attention, like, what is my reaction to it? How does it resonate with me?
Yeah,
so
like cross-examination type of thing. That way, you know, it's easy to look at what someone else is telling you and say that must be the truth. But if you've done it yourself first, you can get a little bit more solid ground of not just eating up something else and not considering what you actually felt beforehand.
How do we start remembering our dreams? Because I know there's so many people who don't even know, who feel like they go to bed and they wake up the next day and it's like, I don't dream.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So would you tell, like, we are all always dreaming, right? It's more about we don't always remember them. And if we feel like we don't dream, that's actually, we dreamt, but we don't remember them. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's completely correct. There's lots of different methods. I think the most common method, you know, people talk about is a dream journal. I really don't recommend like a pen to paper dream journal for anyone who doesn't remember their dreams well, because honestly, it's really hard to do that, you know, waking up and then you like blast yourself in the face with a light. And if you've ever tried dream journaling right from a dream, you know, you usually end up scribbling something down and it looks like 5-year-old handwriting, and you read it an hour later, you're like, what does that even say? Like, I can't even figure it out. So if you're someone who really struggles with dream recall, the thing that I've seen be the most successful with people is a voice recorder. You can use like a separate handheld one, or mostly everyone has them in their phones now. And so you can kind of pin it to like the front of your phone, where you don't even really need to open your phone up or look on it or anything, but just, tap that voice recording button. And that way, for a lot of people who struggle with dream recall, it's like that morning situation that they struggle with, maybe where you wake up and you're like, I got to do this and I got to get this ready, or you're woken up by kids or your cat or whatever it is, right? And then the dream is gone. The voice recorder is super useful for like what you were sharing, Hannah, with those dreams that happen throughout the night. We all wake up multiple times throughout the night. And so if you kind of keep in your mind like, oh, I'll just roll over in the middle of the night and whisper something into the recorder, even if it's a little snippet, that really propels dream recall a lot for people. Even if you don't remember it, I'll have nights where I'm like, I don't think I woke up, and I'll listen to the voice recorder, and I recorded like 5 different snippets throughout the night that were completely gone from my mind in the morning. So that's a really good way to kind of start getting your mind into the habit of just say something in the recorder. It doesn't have to make sense. Whereas writing something down, quite difficult. And then our conscious, like awake mind gets in the way of like, how do I even explain this? Or we want to write it as a story that makes sense. So I think when we're kind of in that middle of the night sleep trance-like state, we just speak whatever's happening out, and that's a really good way to kind of start building it up.
Beautiful. And how do we from okay, a dream, very just a subconsciousness spilling out information, and then our conscious mind trying to make sense out of it, which is kind of like a bottom-up approach, if you want to say so. How do we then go top down and start to influence our dreams?
Yeah, so that's what I love about lucid dreaming. The whole thing that got me really interested in that for, lucid living, like living our best lives, is really taking something from our unconscious dream material or just everyday waking life that we're curious about, and then taking that into the lucid dream to explore it. So it could be something as simple as, working on a podcast, right? And being like, I want to think about a really interesting topic that my guests would love to talk about. I want to create a list of like 10 speaking points, right? Topics of interest. And so setting that intention and then going into a lucid dream, you could do something as simple as just approach 10 dream characters and ask each of them, who would you love to have on the podcast? What topic would you love me to talk about? And you'll get 10 different responses that you might not have come up with in the waking state, since in a lucid dream, different parts of your brain are communicating, different parts are online that aren't when you're in the waking state. And so you kind of see things from an altered perspective, almost like a psychedelic state where you're having this experience that you wouldn't have, or you're bringing to light things that you wouldn't necessarily think of. So something as simple as that, just asking a question or working on something. The other side of that is like, if you wanted to build confidence speaking with someone, or practice, doing your first ever episode, maybe you're nervous, you're like, I haven't been on camera, I haven't done this before. In your lucid dream, you could literally set it up where you practice speaking into a camera, and then you can even watch it back yourself from that altered perspective as well. So you're just able to do things with that kind of security and safety within your own dream space that you can then use and take back into the waking state. If you practiced your first 10 podcast episodes in the waking state, you'd actually have to do that process, whereas you can spend up to 8 hours of that night sleeping doing that, and then you'd wake up with that lived conscious experience. So that's kind of a mini example of, I guess, what you could start working with. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. So the first step is really like setting an intention before I fall asleep, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I think definitely it's good to have even a simple intention of what you want to work on, since a lot of people will, they'll have the lucid dream, they'll go to sleep, even could happen tonight after listening to this episode. They're like, oh, that's really cool. I want to have a lucid dream. And just listening about it, talking about it, thinking about it makes it really likely to happen. And so then they'll have it happen. They'll wake up inside their dream and be like, oh my God, it's happening. And it seems completely real, like you in the room right now. And so then it's happening, but they didn't have an intention of like, what do I do now? And then you're kind of just in there like, oh, I'm not sure what to do. And so then your mind usually wakes you up. So I have a lot of those experiences that people will say, I listened to this YouTube video you made or this podcast episode, and I had a lucid dream that night, but I didn't know what I should do, or I didn't have something kind of on the tip of my tongue of what to say. So I think it's always good to just, write down something that you want to do or you want to try, or a question you want to ask, so that when it does happen, you're prepared to try something,
And how do we, like, so often when we're dreaming, we don't know that we are dreaming, it feels so real, like all the emotions that we're experiencing, like feel like true awakened life, like real life, kind of like reality. So that's why awakened life, right? It's like, how do you call both sides?
I call it, waking state, and then lucid dream state, or dream reality. Yeah.
Okay. So like the lucid dream emotions feel like as real as the one when we're in the awakened state. So it's sometimes so hard that when you're dreaming, to know that you're dreaming. I think I once watched a YouTube video where the guy said like, if you're interested in that topic, like during the day, start to hold your breath and try to breathe in, like hold your nose, try to breathe in, and you will notice the difference within a dream and within the awakened state.
Yeah.
What is your tips, or like what would you say?
Yeah. So there's these things called reality checks, where some stuff works differently in a dream to how it works in your waking life. So I think the technique you're talking about is where if you block your nostrils, you can't like blow out of them, right? Because you're blocking the airways. But in the dream, that's not your real nose. Like it's your dream nose. So you can still feel yourself breathing in your like dream body, since you're not actually doing that. And there's some different things, like you can like pull your finger, it will turn into this like long spaghetti, or push your finger through your hand and it will like go right through, because it's not your physical body, right? So those are very obvious, weird reality checks that you can use to confirm I am actually in a dream. Because like you're saying, it seems completely real, and there might be something that you're like, I'm pretty sure I'm dreaming right now, but our brains are really good at convincing us like, no, this is normal waking life, even if stuff is really weird, right? Which is why, yeah, you can be like riding a dragon through space and not have any idea you're dreaming, and you wake up like, oh, obviously, right? I was dreaming. So yeah, those are physical reality checks that you can use. There's a ton of like really common ones, like the nose one and pulling your finger. I really recommend that people use mental reality checks in connection to their dream journal, since doing something like pulling your finger or blocking your nose are not common things we think about throughout the day. And so it's kind of, those are only going to work if you really, really work on them. Like you're doing it 20 times a day, 50 times a day, and then your mind is really used to doing that. So then when you're in a dream, you end up doing it as well. But the chances of you just suddenly looking at your hand in the middle of a dream is pretty small. So the reality checks that I ask people to work on are going through your own dream journal and looking at, who are characters that show up all the time? What are the environments that show up all the time? What are some of the emotions that you experience all the time? And kind of picking something that keeps repeating for you to use as that check. So really simple example. I don't know, for you, Hannah, like, is there a person that shows up in your dreams constantly, or a particular place that you've noticed that repeats?
I actually belong to those people who don't remember their dreams too much. Like I do sometimes, and this is actually something that I want to, like, I'm also creating this podcast episode to totally selfish reasons, because the other day I had on my YouTube home, like, the home feed or however you call it, I had this one video of like, I tried 30 days lucid dreaming and it changed my life or something like this.
That's
and then I watched that one. I was like, actually, this is such a fascinating topic and I don't know anything about it. And I'm not a lot in touch with my dreams. Like I do have dreams. And then in the middle of the night, I scribble something on a Post-it, but then the next day I can already not really, don't really remember too much anymore. So
okay,
no,
cool.
I don't, because I'm not that much in touch with my dreams yet.
Okay, amazing. Well, yeah, then you can try out one of the techniques that I've shared in this. I really recommend just looking at those simple categories like character, emotion, environment. Start with just that. And keeping your dream journal as simple as those three things. Like when you wake up, you're like, who was I with? Where was I? How was I feeling? Right? You can always, at minimum, check the emotion, because usually when we wake up from a dream, that kind of lingers through the strongest, which is why if you have like a nightmare or stressful dream, you like feel your heart racing when you wake up. Or if you had a really relaxing dream, you maybe wake up feeling a bit more relaxed. But just looking at those three things and then thinking about, whatever it was. So say it's your mom who shows up in your dreams the most throughout the week, like 8 out of 10 dreams. Then what you start doing is using your mom as your reality check to check in. Am I dreaming whenever you're in contact? So it could be like every time your mom calls you on the phone, you take a minute to think like, okay, where am I right now? Who am I with? What's going on? Am I dreaming or not? Every time she texts you, every time you meet her face to face, anytime someone's talking to you about your mom or asks you a question, you have your mom as that like overarching kind of reality test theme. Or maybe it's something like emotions are really strong. So you notice that in your dreams, you're always really angry, even though you're a really calm person in your waking life. In your dreams, that's where your anger comes through. So then anytime you're experiencing that sensation of anger, same thing, you'll check in like, okay, I'm angry. Who am I with? Where am I? Am I dreaming right now? Like what's going on? And that way it makes it really personable to you, rather than something kind of random, like just blocking your nose or trying to pull your finger. It becomes a really personal breakthrough that has a much higher chance of happening, I guess.
Oh, this is so fascinating. Truly, really. I understand why you made this kind of like your job and purpose. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
And what can lucid dreaming do for us? Like, how can we use it? And maybe first, like a little bit general, and then I would like to really dive into the topic of how we can use it for mental health, because you said that's your specialty, right? And I talk very openly here about mental health. So I'm sure a lot of listeners do struggle maybe with anxiety, depression, and so on as well. And then I think it would be very interesting how we can use lucid dreaming to help us in those situations.
Yeah, I mean, in the simplest terms, you can use it for literally whatever you're passionate about. You know, if you're an artist, you can go into a lucid dream and see your next best-selling painting. If you're a writer, you can have a lucid dream and open up a book and see like, what's the next chapter I should write? What's an idea for my book cover? You know, you can use it for absolutely anything you want. From creative things, I think is really popular. I think also really popular topics are, you know, just having fun, experiencing freedom, especially during the pandemic. It's like we can't travel, but in your lucid dream, you could spend the night in Hawaii if you wanted to. You could, for me, it was like, great, I could go back home to London. You can eat food, you can just fly, right? Which is so much fun in itself. So it's really, the possibilities are as big as your mind will go, to use it for anything that you want. You know, you can do everything that you can in the waking state, but with limitless potential. So obviously you can have superpowers, you could fly, money is not a requirement, right? So if you're someone who's really, I don't know, passionate about, I'd love to experience driving a Lamborghini. Like, you don't have to wait until you've got that millionaire lifestyle to drive one. You can just try it in a lucid dream and see how you feel. Or for me, I love trying things that I'm manifesting, right? So when I was planning my lucid dreaming retreat and I hadn't done a retreat before, I wanted to kind of see that experience. So I tried having a lucid dream where I was doing a really intimate retreat with like under 10 people, and seeing what that felt like. And then I tried doing a retreat with, you know, hundreds of people and saw what that felt like, so that I could get a really good idea of that kind of simulation of what I'm aiming towards and what I want it to look like. And honestly, just getting a real taste from it, you know, having that epic experience in a dream. You don't then wake up the next day like, oh, that was really amazing, but whatever. You know, I woke up like buzzing. I was like, oh my God, I need to put on this lucid dreaming retreat as soon as possible. That was epic. You know, I can't wait to do it. And so it gave me that real waking life motivation of kind of having your cake and tasting it and then eating the whole thing to just really accelerate and move forward. So I think for a lot of creative things and manifestation processes, it really helps kind of speed up and accelerate that process so that you're not waking up feeling unsure or uncertain or sitting there wondering what you should do next. You kind of see that bigger vision, and then you can just bring that into reality for yourself.
That's amazing. And it really makes it like, especially if you have like big self-doubt and so on, like that is what, you know, I practice a lot to visualize things in my meditation, but then to go through it in a dream where it's like actually the outside like truly reacts and so on, and you feel it so much more intensely than just when you visualize in an awake state. Yeah. That makes it so like reachable, even if the vision is so big. That's so beautiful.
I use them all the time for practicing something, especially if it's something that I feel, you know, naturally a little bit anxious about. Like when I produced my research, I then presented it on stage in Germany at this huge conference. And I knew it was going to be in front of, you know, hundreds of people. People were going to ask me questions about it. And I'd never done anything like that. And so even though I was so excited to do it and to share it, I was like, well, I don't want my first experience to literally be when I'm walking on stage and just kind of hope for the best, you know? So I simulated that experience so many times in my lucid dreams beforehand, to the point that when I actually went on stage in my waking life, I felt like I've already done this, you know, 20 plus times. So I wasn't nervous at all. And all of that information truly creates those neural connections while you sleep. So it is like a very powerful form of visualization, the same way that, you know, athletes work on visualizing themselves winning. You can do that for yourself in any scenario you want to.
And the thing is, like, even there are so many studies with athletes or also piano players and so on. But I mean, piano, okay, this is like still a skill that's a lot as well with your mind. But then even athletes where like the stamina or the muscles even like improved and got stronger when people like when they just rehearsed it in their mind. So I assume if people like rehearse things in their dreams, like that their bodies even also react to it as like to the same amount, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you really went through that process and did it. So I used it for things like that with muscle memory when I was playing violin. And, you know, I'd have a piece that in my mind, I know what I wanted to play, but like my fingers couldn't keep up with the music. And so I would go into the dream state, have a lucid dream, and then get my fingers to do that, rehearse it. And I would wake up the next day and be able to do it. And I don't really know the ins and outs of like, how does that happen? I'm not a neuroscientist, but, you know, it is my lived experience as well as so many other lucid dreamers. I think there are research papers that would be much better than me at explaining kind of the science behind how that works.
That's amazing. And do you lucid dream every night, or is it still for you, even though you practice so many years and so on, still as sometimes?
So I can now at the point where I can induce a lucid dream anytime. So I can literally go take a nap right now and have 100% certainty that I can go into a lucid dream and induce one. But I do still see the value in non-lucid dreams. I do usually have a lucid dream each night. Or phases where I am lucid. I think just because this is like my whole life, right? Like I teach it, I'm in it constantly. And so because I'm always thinking about it and teaching on it, and also my students really inspire me, you know, they'll come up with fun things they want to do. And that night I'm like, I want to try that, you know, so that plays a huge part in it. And it not being spontaneous, like knowing how to induce it. But in general, I do also value my non-lucid dreams. There are lots of dreams that I have that are not lucid, where I get that insight into what's my subconscious mind thinking about, what's my unconscious mind thinking about. So I'm absolutely not someone who's just like, I want a lucid dream all the time, every single moment. You know, I love all types of dreams, even nightmares, precognitive dreams, the whole thing I think is really fascinating.
And are there any limits in dreaming?
I don't know, really. I think there are limits that come into it with mindset, for sure. There's people who have lucid dreams where they have a particular task in mind that they want to achieve and they're unable to achieve it. And I think mindset plays a big part in that, where if you doubt yourself or you don't think it's possible, you know, your dream is partially created from your mind, right? So if you think, I'm going to do this in the dream and it's probably not going to work, then it probably doesn't work. In saying that, though, there is also research on lucid dreams not needing really high expectations. So that actually plays a part in the research I did with depression, where even where we had depressed participants who had really low expectations of their lucid dreams being able to heal them or help them, they did still find healing from their lucid dream space without the expectation. But I do think there are limits with mindset and expectation that does definitely play a small part of it.
Mm-hmm. You touched it again. I already asked before. And how can we use lucid dreaming to like improve our mental health and heal ourselves and the problems that we have in the mental health space?
Yeah. For me, I really struggled with depression and anxiety and a lot of mental health issues growing up. And I think a lot of us have those experiences where we had childhood traumas or even adulthood traumas, and we unfortunately don't really live. Now it's definitely a lot better, but not necessarily living in a society that prioritizes mental health. You know, we prioritize just go to school, get a job, make money, pay the bills, and not as much, you know, let's look at some stuff that happened in the past. And so for me, there was a lot that went on growing up that I think at the time I didn't have the capacity to really process. I also struggled a lot with just traditional therapy. You know, I went to therapy, but there was my kind of waking state ego played a part in that. Of the session completely depended on, what do I want to say today? What do I want to talk about? What do I not want to talk about? How well am I able to articulate the experience? How much do I want to push the blame on something else and on myself? And then also depending on the person I was working with, you know, how good were they at asking the right questions or giving me the right tools to deal with any of that. So other than that, I think where lucid dreaming really plays a great part is your dreams are just your truth, right? That those things that happen will come up as they happened. The feelings of them play out in a very real way. And so when I'm in the dream and I'm working on a particular trauma or past experience or something that I want to process, I am doing both parts of that. Like I'm the patient and I'm the doctor at the same time. And I know what those things mean to me. And I think we all experience that with even non-lucid dreams, where particular topics or things come up, or you have a nightmare and you know, like, I know exactly why I'm having this nightmare. It's because of this particular situation. But you may not have ever shared anything about that situation with anyone in your whole life, right? But it's something that you know deep inside you. So I think there is something very potent with dreams in that way, where it really is, you know, your dream journal is the best book you'll ever read in your life, because it's about every single inner working part of you, all the way from things that you're super conscious about to things you're completely unconscious about. And so if you want to really learn to kind of integrate yourself as a whole and look at things again in your past that you don't have the opportunity to think about during the day, or things that you're worried about in the future, things you're excited about in the future, then your dreams play that role in kind of being your ultimate inner doctor, so to speak.
Fascinating. This is especially like we sleep so much, and it's like, it's sometimes like, I already, when I was a kid, I never wanted to sleep because it was so boring. I always felt, and I swear, like everything you're talking totally switches and changes the kind of how I view sleeping.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you still wake up refreshed, right?
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of the times in lucid dreams, even though it's active, you'd think like, oh, well, if I'm spending the whole night like flying around or doing all this work, then when I wake up feeling tired, but you're actually accessing a deeper level of sleep. Like there's different levels of REM sleep, and lucid dreaming usually takes place in a pretty deep level of REM sleep. So if you have one of those cool apps like the Aura Ring or Fitbit and stuff like that, you'll find that people who do dream work tend to be in those deeper, more restful states of sleep, rather than the kind of lighter, not feeling as refreshed stages.
That's amazing. And something that is constantly on my mind, like I told you, I'm somebody who never wants to sleep, or who never used to want to sleep, because I never didn't want to miss anything of life and so on. It was already when I was like a little kid, like my poor mom. And still now, I'm not a big fan. Like I know sleep is so important for my health, and I do need a lot of sleep, or at least that's what I think and feel.
Yeah.
But I always find it boring because I feel like I'm missing out on life.
Right.
Once somebody is into lucid dreaming and learns and knows how to do it, would you see a risk of that somebody, because, you know, now the like sleeping phase and when we are in a dreaming phase, like the possibilities are endless, and we can be confident and millionaires, and we can, I don't know, do whatever we want. But then yet in our awakened state, we do have limits.
Yeah.
Do you see a risk that people get too drawn into that other side and kind of like lose not really the like both are realities? So I'm not really the attachment to a real life, but more kind of like interest and fascination in it, because all of a sudden we have all these limitations. So why work on things that take time and so on, while I can just slip with my fingers in my dream state and I'm in Fantasia land or whatever, you know?
Totally. Yeah. I think, there is that thing of escapism for sure. That can play a part in lucid dreaming, especially when you first experience it, because you are just like, oh my God, mind blown. And like you're saying, you can do all this cool stuff in your dreams, but then you're waking up to this really boring job or something that you don't particularly feel passionate about. There can definitely be that inclination to like, I want to go really hard in my dreams. I think the cool thing about lucid dreaming, though, is it does ripple over and have a ripple over effect in your waking life. So, it is changing your mindset. There is a process happening. So you do notice that you start feeling different in your waking life. And at least through my research, that led into people wanting to, or kind of recognizing that potential they had for their waking life as well. And so a lot of people who were getting really creative in the lucid dream space then woke up feeling more motivated and energized to be more creative in the waking state as well. So yes, I think there's that initial pull of like, this is really amazing, but naturally we want to share something in the waking state. We want to involve our friends and families in it. And the same was true for me. When I started discovering all of this in my dream state, and what my research showed as well was that everyone who gets to that kind of state in their lucid dreams, one of the most dominant emotions is wanting to share it. And so if you're creating something amazing, you want to produce it. Or if you're having an amazing experience or you're healing, you want to share that process with other people as well. So I think it does filter through to the waking state, where you kind of start leveling up in both. And it gives people that freedom to recognize, okay, I'm not happy with my job or my relationship or my financial situation. And so what can I use in my lucid dreams to then benefit me and actually improve my waking life? So I think naturally that kind of filters through, so that you're not just like, I want to sleep 24/7.
Yeah, amazing. Plus, if we have the capability to, in our dreams, change our awakened life, like, it's still, I don't know, how many hours are we awake?
Yeah.
16 or something, I don't know, longer, whatever, of our day. So if I have the capability to change it, then why wouldn't I? So I kind of like enjoy and love, and both make me happy and joyful. And so kind of like every hour of my day is filled with joy and fulfillment. So
yeah, I think that's why, I switched my coaching title to Lucid Dreaming and Lucid Living Coach, because it's not just about, okay, let's have some epic lucid dreams and then wake up and be like, about our lives. It's like, what can we take from the lucid dream space to enhance our waking life? And then what can we take from our waking life to then enhance in the lucid dream and create that awesome cycle, so that, you're enjoying as much of your conscious experience as possible. And I think lucid dreams just enhance that, like it's an extra 30% of your life almost that you can spend doing something that you're passionate about, or that creates even more happiness and wealth and success and joy for yourself when you're awake.
Amazing. For everybody who is as curious and as like hooked on the topic like I am, how can we work more with you? How can we get more resources of you? And how can we dive deeper with you in that world?
Yeah, I mean, I like sharing as much as possible. I'm on this mission to share this practice with as many people who can benefit as possible. So I have a ton of free resources on my YouTube channel, which is Get Lucid with Lana, or I think it's tagged under my name, Lana Sackwild. Same thing on like my Instagram. I got a bunch of like really fast information and tips and stuff on my TikTok. So there I have a ton of just free, really easy to digest material if you're a beginner or wanting to get started with dream journaling and kind of simple techniques. And then if you're someone who's like already had a couple of lucid dreams and you want to take it to a little bit more of the next level, I have some 2-hour master classes on my website. They go into like specific lucid dreaming induction techniques. So if you're ready to like really build yourself out a plan of action and you want to maybe not just have a lucid dream that's about like flying or eating cake, but something really purposeful that will help you in your waking life, then I recommend a masterclass. And then the level above that is I run a course called the Lucid Entrepreneur Lab, which is a 6-month minimum in-depth training course where we do one-on-one coaching, group coaching. You go through a ton of modules over the 6 months. And so that's like, it's like a whole family of lucid dreamers and entrepreneurs and people who are using this practice to seriously change and enhance their waking life.
I will link everything in the show notes so everybody can dive deep into this wonderful topic. And to you, a big, big thank you for all the information you shared with us. It's truly such a fascinating topic and you are so knowledgeable in it. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you so much for being on Empowering Vibez, and thank you for sharing that with the world.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and I'm excited to hear what you and your listeners get out of it. No doubt you can even have a really potent dream as soon as tonight. So I'm excited to hear what happens.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, I would like to know from you, what was your biggest takeaway and how can you put it into action starting now? Leave a comment below or hop over to Instagram at HannahWiz_ and leave a comment under the post of today's episode. Thank you so much for watching, and never forget to shine your light.